So I think a lot of these gym aware units are becoming a bit of a distraction at times. And in this video, I want to tell you why using mean velocity could actually just be ruining your Olympic weightlifting technique, and how focusing so much on surfing the force velocity curve could actually just be making your athletes slower. The purpose of this video is to clear up a bit of confusion to enhance your real world velocity based training results. At the end of the day, VBT is a fantastic tool, a fantastic aid for driving intent and competition in the gym. But what it doesn't do is replace sound programming principles and good old fashioned periodization. Now, if you're not familiar with VBT or velocity based training, it's a tool or an aid that gives you real-time feedback on how the barbell is being moved during exercises and movements. There's a bunch of different providers available in the market. Some of them make fantastically reliable and valid products, and I'm a big proponent of using this in my training. But what I want to make sure we do here is ensure we're using that technology in the best, most efficable way so that you actually get the best out of it. The problem, as I see it, is that because VBT is so in vogue, we've got a lot of practitioners who don't really understand it that well and who also haven't used it a lot. They're inexperienced in using it, and therefore they're trying to apply theory to practice without understanding the practicality of it. And there's a real sort of lack of pragmatism in general. So at its core, VBT is all about driving intent, moving the bar faster, and being as explosive and powerful as possible in our traditional strength training movements. It's an aid to assist rather than completely replacing your traditional, whether it's RPE or reps in reserve, proximity to failure, or percentage-based training. Now, I find that the gym aware in particular can be a really powerful motivator and can enhance the quality of the training that you get done. And the real world results are that you get much better training adaptations using it than without. So no doubt it's very effective, but you've got to use it correctly. A few of my favorite use cases for velocity-based training are in our primary sort of traditional barbell movements. So whether that's the back squat or the bench press, deadlifts, more ballistic or Olympic style lifts, whether that's clean pulls or power cleans, it gives you some really good feedback on the quality of how you're moving the barbell. And when we train with higher levels of quality, the adaptations from a neurological standpoint are always going to be enhanced. And that's where you get much better response to training. However, you can go astray a little bit by using the wrong metrics on the wrong lifts. And an example that I'll give is when we're talking about Olympic lifting or ballistic lifts in particular, it's really important that you understand the difference between using mean velocity and peak velocity to give feedback to athletes. When it comes to an exercise like a clean pull, what we're really looking for is to ensure that the metric that is being provided, the feedback you're getting from the velocity-based training device, is incentivizing the right type of movement quality. Now, the common mistake I see is using mean velocity. And the reason that using mean velocity on something like a clean pull can damage your Olympic weightlifting technique is because what it does is it rewards and encourages players to yank the bar off the ground and accelerate through the first pull faster than what is optimal for performing the exercise with the best technique in order to maximize power production and also to reduce the risk of injury. So what we can do instead is if we change the metric that you're getting feedback on over to peak velocity, what you'll then see is in the second pull, that's the number that you're going to get. You're going to get the number of the bar speed as you're executing the end of that second pull, as you get into triple extension, when you're applying maximum force into the bar and you're essentially at takeoff velocity. And that's where we want the feedback, because if we're so focused on trying to yank the bar off the ground super fast, by the time we get to the end of our second pull, we're all out of whack. Our positions are wrong. We're not summating forces. It's not a sequenced kinetic chain. It's a rushed and jolty movement. So that one change in metric and feedback that you get can significantly impact what the technical execution of the lift looks like. Now, the great thing about using VBT on something like a clean pull is if we're using peak velocity, you get some really nice feedback about the snap and the pop as you get into the back end of that second pull, as you're hitting triple extension. And that gives players a really good number to chase or to target. In particular, a really good use case for it would be an athlete who traditionally would catch a clean and they might be injured with a hand, wrist, or finger injury. So you decide to modify them to a clean pull. Well, how do you quantify what's happening in that clean pull? Well, We can look at peak velocity in a power clean. If you're working above sort of 85 to 90% of your 1RM in a power clean, you're traditionally going to find that the peak velocity is going to be probably somewhere between 1.7 and 1.8 meters per second for most team and field sport athletes. And then you can retrofit that target to the clean pool. All right. So now you're working at essentially the same intensity. You're giving them a similar target to chase, and that's going to help you with your load selection. And that's where VBT is such a powerful tool. The other issue I see with VBT in practice is surfing the force velocity curve. And you just got to look at when people try and sort of target or train starting strength with this idea that it's somehow going to enhance maximal velocity. Essentially, you end up doing back squats with a weight that's so low that it should become a ballistic lift. So I don't really know what you're trying to achieve or what you're trying to get out of that exercise. I think you're better suited to start from a programming perspective initially and then add the VBT secondary to that to drive intent and competition to enhance the quality of the program you've already put together, rather than trying to retroactively fit VBT, well, your exercise selection coming after knowing that you want to use VBT. You've got to start with first principles, start with programming, and make sure you're selecting exercises that are well suited to the adaptations you're trying to chase. If we're thinking about fast dynamic strength, then a back squat is probably not number one pick. Okay, you're probably going to more be heading towards ballistic lifts or Olympic lifts, so some sort of loaded jump. So select that exercise first, then you can add the VBT device to it, and then you're probably thinking about using peak velocity, and that's going to help you get the adaptations you're chasing, rather than using mean velocity on a back squat to target starting strength because you think it's going to make athletes run faster. It's just a backwards approach to thinking about how you apply the technology. When you use the technology well, it is an absolutely fantastic tool, but you got to make sure it's aligned and the incentives are correct to drive you in the direction that you actually want the program to go. So one of the best ways I think you can actually apply this into your practice is you just get it on your traditional heavy strength movements, put it on your back squat, put it on your bench press, still use a percentage-based, periodized set and rep scheme. But then what you're going to do is obviously within your program, there's going to be stages where your player keeps coming back to 85% of their 1RM. And what you want to be looking at is our mean velocity in that barbell movement increasing at the same given load. That's a really good indication that you're improving the quality with which they're moving the bar and therefore making them stronger and more powerful. The next part then is, you're looking at your Olympic ballistic lifts. Every time your player comes back to 90% of their power clean, then what's your peak velocity look like? Are they able to express the same amount of force in less time? Is the quality of what they're doing improving? That's how I see VBT enhancing the training environment. Some of these tools, like GymAware, for instance, has this fantastic leaderboard. You can put that up on the television. You can start ranking players, scoring everyone. All right, everyone, when you get to your fourth working set, which is a triple at 88%, I want to see who can move their relative load the fastest. That's going to give you a way to drive competition, get the players engaged in using the technology, and overall have higher intent in the training. And a program that is executed with high levels of intent is always going to lead to better training adaptation. So the key takeaways here are quite simply, make sure you're picking the right metric for the movement that you're doing. So Olympic ballistic lifts, it's got to be peak velocity. Anything that is a more maximal strength, traditional lift without a flight phase, then you're going to be looking at mean velocity. That is where we want to accelerate the bar through the full range of motion. It's really important that you make sure that VBT is used to complement your program rather than drive every element of it. Don't be afraid to use VBT sparingly. I think it's really important as well that you just make sure it's doable. You don't want VBT on every single exercise to the point where you can't tell if players are using the technology properly. You don't have the resources to man the technology properly. Make sure if you're using it, it's being used well. The players understand what's happening and the data is being collected correctly. And that way you're going to know whether or not you're tracking the right things, and longitudinally, if your data is incorrect, then you might as well throw it out. So it's about making sure you're doing it well. If you can't do it well, I'd be very sparing with the use of VBT, and in fact, probably just don't worry about it. Final point is that VBT is such an awesome tool for driving intent and enhancing the competitiveness and gamifying your training environment. So lean into that, use it. That's what it's best use case is. So we as coaches need to lean into that and take advantage of that so that it complements our program. My challenge to you guys is to try and implement your VBT following those guidelines that we've just discussed, and let me know how you go with it. Let me know in the comments below whether or not you found that it enhanced your training adaptations better, or if it didn't, what are the issues that you find along the way? And hopefully I can help you guys even further in perhaps a follow-up video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, make sure you click the subscribe button and like this video. It helps me get this information out to more viewers.